It does seem every year the political advertising becomes more and more vicious. I've not yet seen it as dishonest as it has been in this election cycle. Dr. Michael Belch is a professor of marketing at San Diego State University. He says that particularly in the 50th Congressional District, where Carl DeMaio and Darrell Issa are running against each other to be in that first or second place position. Ads have been particularly nasty. He joined us on News Radio 600 KOGO. Dr. Belch, thanks for spending time with us. So I guess we need to define our terms a little bit, right? I mean, there's negative campaigning, but then the people that are in the business of campaign management call it comparison campaigning. Is it? Yeah, in other words, they're trying to draw a comparison from one candidate to another. I mean, is drawing a stark comparison, is that considered negative campaigning?
Well, I guess it depends on how you do it. I can draw a comparison without being negative, and I can certainly be running a negative campaign without drawing any comparisons. I think if you want to talk specifically about the DeMaio campaign, and basically what it seems to me you have going on there is you have some comparative issues as it relates to their relationship with Trump, but nothing else, and comparing nothing else in terms of what would happen if they were elected. So I think it's a little negative, and I also think it is, in a way, it is a comparison.
I try and figure out, like, who started it, kind of a thing. I mean, since we're talking about, almost like a schoolroom brawl, that sounds juvenile, but, it always seems that it's triggered by an action. And on this one, particularly in the 50s, it does seem as if it was Issa that started the accusation. He got some negative heat from the Union Tribune about his television ads that were characterized as gay baiting by the Union Tribune. And then DeMaio reacted to put things in perspective from his perspective, and then it just continued to volley back and forth.
Yeah, and that's really what it's come down to, hasn't it? I mean, it's really one person attacking the other person, but really not providing a whole bunch of information to the voter.
Well, let me tell you what I hear from campaign strategists. Campaign strategists look at this in a very simple equation. Early polling showed DeMaio very favorable. So if you're challenging DeMaio, you need to drive down his favorability, right? That's at least what campaign people, how they explain it to me. So in order to do that, you've got to go on the attack to make that individual seem less favorable in the mind of the voter.
Well, that's one way, and certainly that seems to be the way they've chosen. You might also take the approach of telling the potential voter why you would be the better candidate, other than directly attacking the other side. And believe me, I'm not on either side here, Issa or DeMaio. I'm just saying they're both doing it with each other, but the loser in the equation is the voter, because I don't know what I would get if either one of them won, other than their relationship with Trump.
All right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the potential political blowback. You saw in the endorsement of the Union Tribune, they went with Senator Jones, and the tone of the rationale for that endorsement was, look, these two are engaged in a muddy political battle. It's time for a fresh new start. Is there a danger of getting so negative that it actually turns off the voter and starts to cause them to look in a new direction?
I would like to think so. I think there's a couple of ways that could happen. And let me preface this by saying that research tends to indicate that attack acts work. And so I think that's probably underlying a lot of the strategies here in the sense that, the more I attack, perhaps the more successful I'm going to be. But also, I would like to argue that if I were a candidate that had a lot to offer the community or a lot to offer the voter, that also might be an effective strategy. And I don't see that in that particular campaign.
But if your opponent is attacking you or saying things about you or mischaracterizing something you said, or even using a past political speech out of context, just the human condition, whether or not it's strategic or for the campaign, you almost can't help yourself but to put out an ad that rights that wrong or tells the truth.
If these ads then are both very truthful, and they're just defending themselves, that might that might be, the best way to go. I think the sheer frequency of the appearance of these ads gets to the point where it does start to make you, question voting for either one of them. And I think there is sound research over the years that show that if you see an ad too many times, and particularly a negative ad or one that you don't like, it could have pushback. It could have a negative impact on your willingness to vote for that candidate or potentially buy that product if it were a product.
We're talking with Dr. Michael Belch. He's professor at the San Diego State University, talking about the tone, or the really vicious tone, of the congressional race here in the 50th. Are you comfortable with, and is it better that many of these ads are disclaimed? In other words, they're not funded by outside organizations or, friends of the 50th district. I mean, each candidate, in even some of the really harsh ads, it's very clear at the end of the ad, it's paid for by Carl DeMille. It's paid for by Darrell Issa.
Right. Am I comfortable with that?
I mean, do you agree that it's better that at least we know, after hearing 25 seconds of some pretty, harsh stuff, that I know exactly who paid to put that on the radio?
Yeah. If that is it, are you referring to where they say I agree with this ad, or are we talking about who actually paid for the ad?
No, the fact I endorse this message, or I support this message, kind of a thing.
Right. Does that mean that they paid for it?
Well, it means that they're aware of it, and they're allowing it to go on television.
Yeah, I think that may be more likely to be the case. And I don't know who's backing them. I don't know that necessarily saying that I endorse this ad means that they paid for it.
Fair enough.
Themselves out of their own pocket.
Dr. Michael Belch, thank you so much for spending time with us, talking about the tone of the 50th congressional race, as Super Tuesday is tomorrow.